Hi, folks, and welcome to Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in the way becomes the way. I'm your host, David Susan. I am so excited for my guest today. We are joined by Morag Barrett. She's a leadership development expert, executive coach, and a keynote speaker on a mission to fix the epidemic of disconnection at work. We're going to learn what that is here in a little bit. She's the author of two books, Cultivate and You, Me, We, and spends her days helping leaders swap fine. I'm assuming that means, you walk down the hall and they go, "How are you? Fine."
Fine.
For real human connection. So if you care about
Mhm.
relationships at work or suspect yours might need a tune-up, you're in the right place. Morag, welcome to Inside the Leader's Mind. I'm excited to have you here.
David, I am looking forward to the conversation, though. As I listened to the introduction and you were saying we're going to go into the leader's mind, I was thinking, people may not want to know everything that's going on in my mind at every time, because there's a lot. It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop, but that's the fun part. But at least we get a little bit of perspective in the time we have.
Yeah.
So for those of you, people that don't know who you are, let's say, you go to a party, you go somewhere and someone says, "So Morag, what do you do?" How do you answer that? What do you tell them?
I'm an international woman of mystery. Actually, no,
Nice.
my answer
Like
is
Austin Powers. I love it.
a little bit of that. I take the junior high out of the workplace. And here's what I've learned from my books, my research, is that success in business is powered by relationships. Success in life at those parties is fueled by connection. And all of us can point to an event, many events, maybe just today, where the interpersonal friction between us and our colleagues or us and our loved ones, the people we care most about, has caused a little bit of a disconnect, missed expectations, frustration. Well, my magic is in helping to close that gap and make sure, especially in our workplace relationships, that we're aligned around that same definition of success.
Love that. How did you get to where you are? Because from
Mhm.
what I read about you and I learned about you, you started in banking, or at least were in banking, right? Tell me a little bit
Mhm.
about that and how or why you made the switch to doing what you do now.
So I'm an opportunist. So I
Opportunist,
won't say
nice.
that there was a why. I'm lying. I'm exaggerating, but I am an opportunist. And so depending on how you count it, I'm on my fifth career. I was going to be an engineer. I just hadn't decided what flavor of engineer because I like puzzles. I like to know how things work. And then squirrel. I'm on to the next shiny object. And so at high school, getting ready for engineering, I did applied mathematics, physics, and economics. And in economics, there was a chapter on how banks create money. And it was fascinating. So I went into finance and spent 15 years in banking, lending millions of pounds to all sorts of very different industries and companies at different stages of their life cycle. And in that, it became apparent to me that the numbers in the spreadsheet are only half of the equation. If they were the whole thing, then we would all be rich. Because everybody would come to the bank and say, "Hey, we're going to get rich. We're going to make unicorn stickers to go on iPod cases." And then they'd miss their goals. And what became apparent to me that what differentiated average to failed businesses from the successful ones was whether or not they cared as much about how business got done, i.e., the relationships that they were building on their teams, in their organization, and with their clients, customers, and communities. And so that was the choice I made, to move from numbers into leadership and executive development with a passion and focus on workplace relationships.
That is so cool. What a cool kind of origin story. I love that. Now, in the bio or the intro, you talked about the epidemic of disconnection. What does that mean?
Well, for anybody who has been on a Zoom or a Teams call and spent that 30 minutes or an hour going, "Yes, David, that's fantastic, David. This is such a great yes."
Yeah.
and then hit that big red button and gone, ugh, I can't even. Then that is a simple example of disconnection at work. And the previous US Surgeon General here likened loneliness in our whole lives as an epidemic. And certainly from my own research, we've had more than 1,000 leaders who've completed their ally mindset profile, and 1 in 5 tell me that they feel disconnected at work, that they have no meaningful relationships, either because I work remotely is the excuse, or I go into the office and my team is elsewhere. But whatever is driving it, they do not feel connected both either to the work that they're being asked to do, and they don't feel connected to their colleagues.
Crazy. So when you talk about this being an epidemic,
Mm-hmm.
when did you realize that this was a big problem
So
in the work
12
you
years
do?
ago when I wrote Cultivate, I did it because I saw too much of the politics, silos and turf wars in many organizations. Because, of course, we can all be great colleagues. We can all get away with, no, I'm fine, when things are ticking along. But it's when the inevitable hits the fan, when a project is missing its milestones, maybe a client is threatening to take their business elsewhere, that's when we need connection even more. Our relationships matter. And so that was the genesis for Cultivate and creating what I call the relationship ecosystem to understand the 4 relationship dynamics that we experience at work, but also recognize that I have yet to meet anybody who gets up in the morning and says, I wonder if I can scupper David's plans today. I wonder if I can be difficult in this meeting. But what you might perceive as me being difficult may be just a conflict in styles. Maybe it's just that I misunderstood the goals for this meeting. It's because we've not had a conversation that has ensured that we are aligned, both on what needs to get done, our parts in it, and how we're going to handle conflict when it invariably occurs.
Fascinating. Do you see this a bigger problem post COVID, right? Where people are more remote and online, or was this a problem before, like the disconnection and what's happening?
So I think it was a problem before, but we were able to work around it. So Gallup, for example, has been studying engagement numbers for 20 years now. And in fact, their question, do I have a best friend at work, was the inspiration behind you, me, we, because we've reframed it from the passive, do I have a friend at work, to am I a friend at work? What the
Hmm.
pandemic really did, and it did it for me too, is it really shone a light on it because we all had to work from home. But I think the mistake that we made both during and after the pandemic is we haven't really adjusted our team game or adjusted our workplace relationship rules of engagement. We took what was apparently working in 3 dimensions, but wasn't because the Gallup data shows that it wasn't, and tried to force fit it to this virtual 2D world. And so if you think about my opening comment, we can all do fake perky on a Zoom call. And if we as leaders are not paying attention, or as we as colleagues are not paying attention to each other, and creating what I call scheduled spontaneity, the opportunities for us just to hang and say, how's it going, David? And if you say fine, to go, so, what's making it great or what's really happening behind the scenes, then unfortunately the stress, anxiety, loneliness, burnout is just going to continue to fester.
In fact, you just mentioned, burnout. I was going to ask, what are the what's what I'm looking for, downside of all these challenges, and what's the upside when we improve it? Meaning, other than just, okay, I feel good, a lot of businesses are going to say, okay, show me the money. Like, bottom line, how is this going to be helping our business? How is it hurting our business? What are you seeing from purely a business standpoint? And I agree.
Oh,
Morale is awesome. You don't want to be burned out, but beyond that, some people want, it depends on what your role is. If you're in charge of stock price, and your investors, it's that's what they care about. So fill me in a little bit on that.
then you need to be paying attention to this even more. Gallup estimates that the cost of disconnection in terms of lost productivity is $406 billion a year for US businesses alone. I mean, that's crazy money. Crazy money. There is a personal toll and tax we pay as well because it increases heart disease, stress, anxiety. And in terms of bottom line, the best example I have, one of our clients, an oil and gas company, was experiencing a spike in accidents. Not good for anybody, life and limbs literally on the line. And they brought us in to help change that. And rather than presenting more rules or checklists, we focused on relationships and connection. And within six months, reportable injuries dropped 18%. Not because the OSHA rules changed, we're not an expert in that, but because people cared enough to say, David, safety goggles. David, lock on, harness. I cared enough to call out if I saw you taking shortcuts that were either going to put you or somebody else at risk. So as much as this is misperceived as soft fluffy, it is business critical because without connection, decision quality is undermined. My best ideas are in my drafts folder. Maybe I never share them on the Zoom call because there isn't an opportunity for us to just shoot the breeze and think about what could be possible. I become an order taker and I react versus being proactive.
Just to bounce off that, there was a conversation I had on one of my other podcasts with an executive, and they said, one of the changes that happened from being in the office to Zoom is if you have a 9 o'clock meeting on Zoom, people don't show up till 9 o'clock. And
Mm-hmm.
so you don't, whereas in a meeting room, you stumble in, you're there 5 minutes early, you're waiting, and you have that 5-10 minutes
Yes.
to start building connection and relationship. I know for those people that are listening now, I have a client of mine that I coach, and what they do is they make sure they take the first 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of every virtual meeting to connect, to like,
Yes.
what's going on? What are you listening to? What's going on? And when she came in, when she first came in and said, we're going to do this, this is a large corporation that she does, it's like, well, we don't do that here. It's like, well, would you do it on my team? And
Mm-hmm.
they had the initial pushback, but now these people will do anything for each other. They'll do anything for her. So it works. My question to you, though, is when you tell executives this to invest in relationships, inside the leader's mind, what is their pushback? What the ones when they do push back, what do they say to you?
So it's a variation of, I don't have time for this. But as you just pointed out, it doesn't take more time. It requires us to be more thoughtful and present in the time we already have. So, for example, the CEO of a defense contractor, when we first started working with them, tumbleweeds when you walked through the corridors because everybody's locked away in their secret squirrel studio doing whatever it is that they do but can't possibly tell us because. And I recall the moment where he turned to us during the first Leadership Academy and said, so, hang on. So what you're saying is I need to start every meeting with 5 minutes of small talk? And we said, well, yes. And so much like your leader, that's what this CEO did. So David, I'll use your name for this example,
Sure,
David's
sure.
5 minutes of banter. And started, and as it took on a life of its own, other leaders started adding David's 5 minutes of banter to their agendas. And now when you walk through, it's not tumbleweeds. There is banter, there is conversation at the coffee machine, and then everybody goes back to their secret squirrel stuff. But it has transformed those relationships, and it didn't require more time. It just required being thoughtful and present in the time that we have.
It's fascinating. People forget that we're humans. They
Mm-hmm.
forget that genetically programmed in our DNA that we are pack animals, right? We're societal, maybe pack is the wrong word, but we thrive in relationship and connection. And do you see, I mean, I see it. I'm curious if you've seen a lot of that not go away, but especially with technology, Zoom, and this, have you seen that more and more leaders and companies and individuals, especially with technology and AI and all this stuff, that they kind of are like poo-pooing it a little bit, going, well, we don't need to, and they kind of have forgotten?
I think we're using the wrong metrics. Because our
Okay.
accessibility through technology, as you've pointed out, it hasn't occurred in the past. So I've got Slack, I've got email, I've got text, I've got old-fashioned phone calls. You name it, you can get hold of me. A LinkedIn message, whatever it is, it's going to get to me. But all of that connection, that digital connection, it is only giving us the illusion of human connection because it's more
I love
transactional.
that.
Often those messages are, hey, do you have that spreadsheet? Do you have that calculation? Did you call the client? It isn't, hey, do you have that sourdough recipe? How was Jim Gaffigan last week, if you happen to know that I went to see him here in Denver? And it's those little comments that allow each of us to feel seen, heard, and valued beyond the job title and the what do you need me to do. You see me as a human being who has a life outside of this video screen. And don't even get me started on the fact that so many clients, they get on these calls and the camera is off. And so now you've only got the audio, which again, okay, similar to a phone, but it is masking the depth of that disconnection that's happening. An AI? Yes, it responds. Claude and I have a very close working relationship, and he is
Relationship.
wonderfully affirming. Makes me feel good. But it's, again, the illusion. But do you know this, David? I was reading an HBR article. The number one use for AI is not coding or problem solving. People are turning to artificial intelligence for or emotional connection. So again, a digital solution to a human challenge and a human problem. We all need to lean into it. Because even if we're saying, well, I'm not that 1 in 5 who's feeling disconnected, somebody on your team is. And so we have to lean in and start closing that connection gap.
And everyone's got their facade and the ego and their identity they protect.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard for them to open up and say, especially in a work environment, that, hey, I'm lonely. Not that that's the right word, but you know what I mean? And God, I wrote this down, the illusion of connection. The
I mean,
illusion of connection.
you will
Love
have
that.
gathered
That's really
by
cool.
now, I'm British. I have
No,
decades. I
no.
know. I
I thought
know,
you were from
shocking.
Texas. I thought
Shocking.
the
That's what I
accent
tell
was from,
people. A little town just east of Texas. However, all y'alls, I did the same. I kept a professional mask because in my head, in the mind of this leader, was how can I be an effective executive coach if you know that I am facing the same life's trials and tribulations? If I say I don't know, surely I have to have it cool, calm, and collected at all times. And that's where leaders misunderstand both psychological safety, emotional intelligence. You don't need to go in and spill everything. But I guarantee a little bit more vulnerability will build confidence, capability, and connection with your team and with your colleagues. And whether that's, I don't know, or maybe I've had a sleepless night and I come in and I'm a little bit assertive, aka bitchy. Then afterwards I need to call you and say, hey, David, I may have been a bit snippier than I intended. I'm sorry. And own it. But if we don't, if we're too busy running on our own hamster wheels, we can find ourselves either running independently or running at cross purposes, and that does not serve anybody.
and that vulnerability for most people, it's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard, you know.
Well, Choose
how do
something
you,
that's easy, like I saw Jim Gaffigan. What do I do for fun when I'm not doing this? Comedy and music. And it just so happens that was the comedy show I saw last week. Now we're sharing something that's safe. Put it out into
yeah,
the ether and it can disperse. You don't need to go deeper than that, but just start.
yeah. Because it gives a little bit of a connection to let people know what you like or who you are
Mm-hmm.
based on what you do outside of work. And the reality is there really is no separation between work and life and home. You are who you are. You're just playing
Mm-hmm.
a different role, putting on a facade, but the reality is you are who you are, and you might as well just be you. And I think it's so hard. How do you get people to shift from focusing on the what to the who? You know, what I do and into becoming this person. How do you create that
So
shift, especially in the workplace?
pragmatic baby steps. So you talked about one with the CEO there that has the 5 minutes of small talk at the beginning. Allow these spaces to emerge. I've seen another leader who will ask, just type a word into the chat that just sums up how you're feeling right now. Not to be discussed, but they can then take a pulse and follow up afterwards. Now, the first time you do that, you might get fine. Okay, well, keep doing it. And as the leader, role model the frustrated, tired, excited, optimistic, but choose the spectrum. Because if you role model and go first, then it will allow others to do the same.
I always see it as peeling an onion too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to move beyond fine, sometimes it takes genuine interest and curiosity by someone for the other
Mm-hmm.
person to feel safe, comfortable is a better word, to be able to share more. Because I think we get jaded where we're used to, Morag, how are you? Fine. Okay, good. How
Mm-hmm.
are you? I just, just my dog died. Great. Have a great day. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it becomes right as opposed to what do you mean? Wait, stop. Tell me more. And I think once people realize you care and you're interested, they're willing, they feel safer and they're willing to open. Have you seen this too in the work you do?
I do. So my signature keynote, I titled it "Fine is a 4-letter word." Because fine is what, or I'm fine, is what leaders say when they're feeling overwhelmed. It's what your top performers say just before they update their LinkedIn profiles and leave. And unless we are curious and go beyond it, you're never going to know until your best people are walking out of the door. So it matters. And I've forgotten the question. Because my mind was churning. So what was the
No, it's
question,
okay.
David, you actually
I
wanted
was,
me to
well,
answer?
I was just sharing that my observation of, well, I kind of forgot mine too, right? We were talking about that when you're genuinely interested in someone else, they start sharing more beyond
Yes.
just fine, and you give them a space where they believe you actually care beyond, you know. And so I was asking if you start to see
Yeah.
that with people,
So
clients.
we've already shared a couple of ways that people can do it. Type into chat the 5 minutes of small talk at the beginning that just asks for passing time. When I'm working with an intact team in person or even on here, then post-it notes are your friend, because here's a way of getting people to write things on post-it notes, either what emotions have you or your friends at work, because now you've got plausible deniability that it wasn't me, that was Sarah. I know that she felt frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed. One item per post-it note, stick them on the flip chart. Now let's group them by theme and have a conversation about what does that mean for the business goals that you're trying to deliver. If most of you are now telling us, I'm sorry, still looking at my fictional flip chart, if most of us are saying that we're stressed, overwhelmed, confused, etc., even if it's not the 10 of us in this room, if it's the 100 people that we lead, our success is going to be undermined. So it's finding ways to start cracking the conversation in a way that allows the dialogue to happen. And over time, as that trust builds, then people are going to say, no, it's actually me that's felt frustrated, confused, and overwhelmed.
Well, that's really cool. So what, as you've done this work, What still surprises you about how humans work together?
How quickly you can close that connection gap when you choose
Really?
to do it. Yeah.
Really?
And it does start. I mean, my latest research is, I think this is why engagement results have struggled, in that the needle has barely moved in 20 years. And I think it's because, well, not I think, I know, because I've been asking the question of thousands of leaders, is that the organizational top-down approach isn't solving it, because it's not actually a time management or a management issue. It's a human issue and it's personal. So we need both. We need the engagement surveys, those can be your metrics, but metrics doesn't provide meaning. And we can do team building and trust falls if you want to, but can't bear them myself. But that doesn't necessarily mean connection beyond that moment. But you can't create connection with others if we're disconnected from ourselves. And so my work now is also focusing on getting through that individual leader mask of no, everything's fine, to what is really either filling you up and helping you flourish, but also draining you and bringing you down. Because if we can alter that balance so that you're more consistently either flourishing or at least aware of, you know what, today, David, I haven't got it, but we're going to do our best. Now you're not writing a story that I'm a flake. You know the context. But the professional mask would be I would show up, I would fake it, and you would still know that something was off. But the story you're going to write now is going to be personal. That either I don't like you, I don't care about the work, that I'm unreliable. And then when you come to the next meeting and you're a little bit more guarded with me, now I write a story going like, what the heck? The world's already against me. And now, David, okay, I'll show you. And that gulf just keeps getting wider. So one conversation, starting with ourselves, how do I feel and what do I need right now? Then I can start saying, and how are you, David? And what do you need right now? And what can we do together? Hence the book title. You, me, we. If you're looking after you, I'm looking after me. We can better look after each other and the business results.
So you think we're ever going to figure all this reconnection out?
Good grief. We're going to get better at it, because here's the thing, I haven't figured it all out. And I still have my off days. My team will tell you I have my off days. But the key here is that of the team, we're not all having off days at the same time. And if I'm having an off day this week, then Eric and Ruby can pick up the baton and run with it. And if they have an off day next week, then I am replenished and ready to pick up for them. So the key is having at least one friend at work, that person who's got your back, that person who you can go to and go, I can't even. And you know they're not going to gossip or judge you. They're going to help you to navigate it. And this comes full circle back to relationships matter. And it's the human connection that will accelerate our impact and our success.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
get very excited about this. It matters.
I'll bet. How where's your focus now as far as your business and what you're focused on? Meaning keynotes, executive coaching, working with companies. Where are you at now?
So in addition to being an optimist, I love everything that I do. However, my focus is on that keynote, and the fine is a 4-letter word, helping to bring this message and, more importantly, the language and tools to start to affect change to a broader audience. And from there, working with leaders at all stages of their careers, but certainly at the senior level where the research shows it is not just lonely at the top, it is one of the loneliest seats, and it doesn't have to be, and nor should it be.
Or they could just go buy a dog. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
As somebody who's between dogs, dogs do help. They understand. They are very therapeutic. Yes. And we still need the human connection, because there is nobody, not even a solopreneur, who is delivering their business results in isolation. So these
Absolutely.
human skills matter, And our canine skills, well, yeah,
Eh,
they're good for
you know,
snuggles later.
so funny. Well, so the name of the podcast is what's inside the leader's mind, and then the sub is what's in the way becomes the way. And people ask me about that phrase all the time, and they would say, "What do you mean? What's in the way becomes the way?" The whole idea behind that is that oftentimes our greatest breakthroughs are because of an obstacle that we faced. So, in your career, in the work you do, we could talk career or anywhere, what's been an obstacle, something that's in the way that really has become the way for you because of that obstacle?
So I'll give you
Either you went through it, and to clarify, I'm so
two.
sorry that either you went through it or around it, right? It's like you crashed it, or you just go, "Hey, look, you know what? I learned that's not for me." So,
So I'll give you two then. One is the British stiff upper lip, the needing to be the strong one. And especially when my parents passed away, which is 20 years ago, being the strong one for my dad after my mum died, being the strong one for my brother after he died, not he, my brother, but after my dad died, being strong for my family, for my business, for my clients. Show no weakness. And that is the independence that I was brought up on, the strong work ethic that I've now worked through, in that it is all about interdependence. Asking for help, offering help, taking help when it is proffered. But independence just creates the island. Interdependence is the way. So that was my breakthrough. And the one that I'm still navigating is that internal leader mind voice that tells me, you don't know, you can't do that. Why are you doing that? The imposter
imposter syndrome,
narrative,
yeah,
which
yeah.
used to be, if you got a scale of 1 to 10, used to be an 8. I think I've got her down to a 2.5 to a 4. And she doesn't get to speak for very long before it's like, well, thank you for your opinion, but you can go and start whispering off stage left. So I don't think it'll ever go away. And it's interesting, even recounting that, I'm having a flashback to a conversation with one of my sons who was just starting his career, just graduated university, or he was still at university. And he turned to me, goes, Mum, I hope I don't mess it up. And I went, what? Mess what up? He goes, life. And my little heart broke. And then I remember the next day leaving to go and meet Linda Sharkey, the co-author of The Future-Proof Workplace. And I was sitting at DIA thinking, who am I? Dr. Linda Sharkey, she's like a big deal. I can't possibly write this book. And then spending the day with her, and at the end of the day, Linda is maybe 20 years ahead of me in her career. She turning to me and saying, do you think it will be any good? And so that was the starting point of recognizing, whether you're in your early 20s, whether you are in your 50s, whether you're in your 70s, that imposter voice is there. But as a human, we get a choice to turn the volume down or tell them to go and sit in the corner and move forward in spite of. And so that's the other leader mindset breakthrough thing that I'm wrestling with.
Love that. That's really cool. Couple more questions. Um,
Okay.
who's been the biggest influence in your life, would you say?
My parents aside, I'm going to go with Dr. Marshall Goldsmith.
Oh, yeah.
So I love his work. It's accessible. It's pragmatic. It's a duh, yeah. Oh, and he's right. We all, brush it away as if it doesn't matter. But the fact that his writings impacted me, but for the last 5 years, I'd consider him a friend and a mentor as part of the 100 coaches community that he formed. It's making me a little bolder, but it's also making me comfortable with not necessarily pursuing a traditional definition of success. I am focused on, am I having fun doing great work, having fun working with great clients, and having fun. And so he has been a huge part of that journey and settling into my reality of this one life that I get to live, so that I am in my role, in my life, not just in the roles that I'm playing for everyone else in their lives. There you go.
Love that. Love that. That's a great answer. All right. Well, last question. This is a question I ask every guest. And I've shared this. If you haven't heard one of my other podcasts, this comes down to when I was a kid, aunts and uncles would say, "How are you?" I'd say, "Fine." "How's school?" "Fine." And that was the end of the conversation, which tags into what we talked about today. And then I jokingly, a little bit jokingly talked about, my daughter. And I would, ask a bunch of questions. And I remember, "Why are you so nosy? You're asking too many questions." And then in another conversation, it's, "Well, you don't know anything about me." So my thought is always, well, what question, for like my daughter, I always think, well, what question should I be asking you? Or when I was a kid, like they didn't know what to ask me. And it would have been great if I just said, "Hey, why don't you ask me about my running, or why don't you ask me about my blah, blah, blah." So the question for you, and I ask all guess this is, what is a question you wish people would ask you, but they don't know to ask you? But secretly, you kind of wish they would just ask you because you want to be able to share something. Like you're bursting at the seams. They don't know it about you. It's not commonplace. What would that be?
Aside from, would you like a cookie with that?
That's a
Um,
good one.
that might be a good one. I think it's more the how can I help? But that is like, how are you to me? Because I'll go, oh no, I'm fine. I've got it.
Mm.
And so I would like to be pushed a little bit more to think bolder, which I said Marshall was doing for me, but actually help me to manifest that by, yeah, offering to help. And then that
That's
links
cool.
back to the independence that is still there, which is leverage your network. So cookies or snacks. And then
Love it.
how
Love
can you help? And don't just take my first answer of, no, I don't know. Let's
it.
talk
Good.
and
I'm
have a
fine.
conversation.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, you've been lovely. If someone wants to learn more, get connected, learn more, what's the best way for them to connect with you or learn more
So
or
please
get
do
more?
connect with me on LinkedIn. It is me, myself, and I who responds to all messages. You can learn more about my work at SkyeTeam, SKYE team.com. And if you would like to take your own ally mindset profile and continue to contribute to our relationship research, you can do that at SkyeTeam, SKYE team.cloud/you, me, we.
Very cool. And I'll make sure in the show notes I put those links and that information. If anyone missed it or didn't get the spelling, I'll make sure I put it on there. But Morag, you've been just lovely to have today. It's just your answers and who you are. Just I loved it. So thank you for being with me today.
I've enjoyed it, and I am leaving here more than fine. I'm feeling energized, so thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for being with me today on Inside the Leader's Mind. I hope you've enjoyed it. Uh, Subscribe, share, let us know your thoughts, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and and we'll see you next time. For Inside the Leader's Mind, I'm David Susan. Bye.